So, you're thinking about buying your first home in Edmonton? I get it. It's this wild mix of excitement and just a ton of stress. There's so much noise out there, it's easy to feel completely overwhelmed. I bet you've been there, late at night, typing this exact question into your phone. It's pretty much the #1 thing on every potential buyer's mind right now. And then, of course, there's this one, the big one. Are we about to see prices fall off a cliff, or is this just the new normal? That anxiety is totally real. You know, this used to be a pretty simple question to answer, but lately, it feels like a high-stakes gamble. You're weighing flexibility against building a future, and it's gotten way more complicated. Okay, so first things first, just take a breath. If these are the questions keeping up at night, you should know you are in the exact same boat as thousands of other people in Edmonton. Your concerns are 100% valid. All right, let's try to cut through all that noise. We're going to push aside the scary headlines for a minute and just look at the actual numbers. Everything we're talking about today is built on public data and solid reports, all current as of November 2025. We're pulling from real, concrete sources here. Local Edmonton sales stats, national housing forecasts, deep dives into the rent versus buy math, and the official government rules for first-time buyers. The goal here is facts and context, not just guesswork and opinions. So let's just walk through this together, okay? We're going to tackle the 5 biggest worries for anyone looking to buy in 2026, one by one, and use the data to hopefully find some clarity. All right, let's circle back to the biggest question of all, timing the market perfectly. That's the dream, right? But what does the data actually hint at when it comes to interest rates? What's really interesting is the story this timeline tells. 2023 was the big shock, right? Those painful peak rates. Then 2024 was all about us slowly getting used to it. Now we're in this period of, cautious optimism. The key thing to see for 2026 is that forecasts are pointing to a gradual easing, not some dramatic crash back to super low rates. So there isn't one magic month to wait for. Okay, on to the second major stress point, prices. I think everyone is secretly, or maybe not so secretly, hoping for a big sale. But is that what the numbers are showing for Edmonton? Well, it's a bit of a mixed story. On one hand, if you look at the big picture for the first half of 2025, the average home price actually went up by 7.2% compared to the year before. Now that's a modest rise, not some crazy explosion, but it's definitely not a drop. But then, if you zoom right in on the more recent data, you see this tiny dip from one month to the next. And this right here tells the real story. The market seems to be cooling, not crashing. It's finding its balance. The real risk here isn't buying at the absolute tippy top. It might be waiting for a huge discount that just never shows up. So that brings us to the next big dilemma. For the first time in a long time, this whole rent versus buy thing has become a really complex debate. So what's the smarter play for Edmonton in 2026? Here's the deal. There is no single right answer. It all comes down to your timeline. Renting can absolutely be cheaper month to month, and that flexibility is a huge plus. But the data for Edmonton is pretty clear that if you're planning to stay put for 7, 8, maybe 10 years, owning a home almost always wins out financially because you're building equity that whole time. Right, so once we get past those big, scary market questions, things tend to get very practical very fast. It all comes down to the money. So let's demystify the whole down payment thing. The rules themselves are actually pretty straightforward. For most starter homes here in Edmonton, you're looking at a minimum of 5% down. If you're looking at a home over $500,000, you just need 10% on the portion that's above that $500,000 mark. Simple as that. So let's make that a real number. For a typical starter home in Edmonton, let's say around $425,000, that minimum down payment works out to $21,250. And of course, you'll need a bit more for closing costs. But seeing a clear, concrete number like that can really transform a vague, scary goal into something you can actually plan for. And this brings us to the final big question. Where? Location, location, location. Edmonton is still one of the more affordable big cities. But where are the real opportunities? And how do you pick a neighborhood you're still going to love in 5 years? The way I see it, you've got 3 main paths. First, there are the mature central neighborhoods. Yeah, they're more expensive, but they tend to hold their value really well. Then you have the middle ring suburbs, which are often the sweet spot between lifestyle and price. And finally, the newer, growing suburbs, where you get more choice, but you got to do your homework on future plans for the area. Okay, so we've looked at all these individual questions. Let's zoom out. What does the big picture actually look like for somebody trying to buy a home in Edmonton next year?
So let's just recap the big takeaways. Interest rates, they're expected to ease up, but slowly. Prices, they're cooling and balancing, not collapsing. Rent versus buy, that's a personal math problem that depends on your timeline. And the down payment rules, they're clear, which makes your savings goal achievable.
And that's really the crucial point here. The market in 2026 doesn't look like a bubble about to pop, and it's definitely not a massive fire sale. It's just a real, functioning market. And in a market like this, good information and careful planning are your absolute biggest advantages.
You see, just understanding the data, that's the first step. It really helps turn that overwhelming feeling of anxiety into a feeling of control, and it gives you a clear path to actually taking action. And that's really what this is all about, isn't it? It's not about hype, it's not about fear, it's about giving yourself real information so you can make the decision that's truly right for you. The path forward is there, and now you have the context you need to walk it with confidence.